Today I want to show you how to use Markdown with TanStack Start. This is perfect if you want to build a scalable, content-driven website, or if you're just starting out with a simple blog. So this is the blog that we're going to be building together, and this one comes with a lot of goodies. First of all of this content comes from Markdown. So inside the repository here, as you can see, we have a folder content/posts, and here we have all our Markdown documents. So everything that is shown inside of here ends up being shown in the website. And it's also type safe, which means that here we actually have two types of entries. We have an article, and this is your normal entry, and then we have a video kind of entry. So this is just a video entry. And if you go back to our content and open up, for example, this video tutorial, you're gonna see we have a type video, and we also have the YouTube video ID. And inside of another normal Markdown entry, you're gonna see that this looks a bit different. We have type article, and inside of it we also have a summary and an author. So we have different fields. And the interesting thing here is that if you forget to use one of these fields, let's open a video file, for example, and let's say that we forgot to define the video ID. Let me delete this part and let me open the terminal, and here you can see there is a validation failed on content/post/tutorial YouTube video ID invalid input expected string received undefined. So you get the error here, and you can just control click and you just land in this file, and you can just add the field that is missing. So this is all powered by Zod. Behind the scenes, I'm gonna come right away to the setup, but I just want you to note that the whole thing is extremely flexible. So you can define exactly how your pages are loaded, in which path they are shown inside your web app, and also how they are rendered using your own components, for example, or your own Markdown renderer. So without further ado, let's jump into it. But first, a quick word from today's video sponsor, which is TestSprite. TestSprite is the easiest way to create and maintain end-to-end tests. Not only does it create end-to-end tests for you, it gives you a really intuitive interface for viewing and editing your test results. You can adjust each test step on the fly by simply replaying the recording and editing the interactions like navigation, field input, click, scroll, or asserts. If you want to have easy, transparent, and up-to-date tests for your code, then definitely give it a try at testsprite.com. You can also get started for free using their free plan. Now back to the video. So I already have a TanStack Start project set up over here. If you're starting from scratch, you can also use this command to create a new repository that is also set up with Chatzian. And first thing we want to do is to install the core library that we're going to be using for loading the Markdown, and that is content collections. And for that, simply run the command npx content collections install. I'm going to hit enter, and this is going to help you set up the whole thing. So the first thing you need to decide is the type of the content that you want to have, and for this I'm going to go with Markdown. You can also choose MDX, which is just like Markdown, but it also has React components in between. It's pretty cool, but it's just a little bit more setup, and you can also always change this later on if you want to have custom components inside your Markdown files. For now, let's just go with Markdown. I'm gonna hit enter, and this is gonna install the dependencies and also set up tsconfig. It's also gonna modify the Vite configuration, adds content collections to gitignore, and also create a configuration file, as well as adding some demo content. So let me show you all that happens. As you can see, we have this content collections file, and this is basically where we configure the kind of Markdown files that we have here. And as you can see, we have a collection, posts, which has a name, posts, and here we define in which directory the Markdown documents are, and in this case this is in content/posts. So if you check here, we're gonna have a folder, content posts, and these are all the demo or the example Markdown files that have been added to the repository. We have a filter, so all the files that end with .md, and then we have a schema, and then we have a transform function. So the schema is actually really interesting because here you can define the fields that you want to have inside your Markdown document. This is, for example, by default, title, summary, date, which is of type date, and then the author, which is a string. And here you can actually get extremely creative. You can define whatever you need. You can also have nested objects, and all of these fields simply need to be in the beginning of the Markdown file inside this beginning block here, and this is all just in a YAML format. Like I showed you before, if you're missing one of these fields, like if you delete the date or something like that, then you're gonna get an error in the terminal. And one last interesting thing you're gonna see in your TypeScript configuration file, there's a new alias that is pointing from content collections to this generated file. And this is a new folder, and this is where basically all the data that is coming from the Markdown file is gonna be turned to real TypeScript and JavaScript code. Now I have noticed that it actually missed one of the steps. If you look inside that git ignore, it did not add the folder, so let's add it over here. So dot content collections. So I'm gonna commit all of these changes, and then we can move on to loading the data and showing them in the website. So first thing we want to do is to load all these posts, and for that we're gonna go to our index page, and this is what is shown here on the right. Right now it's just an example, component example. And in order to load the data, we're gonna use the loader function that is available at each route in TanStack start. And here we're just gonna grab all posts, and this variable all posts is gonna be the one that has all the data that is coming from content collections. And this actually also needs to be a function. So nothing changed in the website yet because we need to modify the app. And what we can do is simply grab these posts using router.useLoaderData. And let's go ahead and return a simple div. And inside of it, I'm gonna go over these posts and just show a simple paragraph showing the title of each one of these posts. As you can see, this is the result over here, and these are the titles of each one of the entries. Over posts, you're gonna see that we have HTML, title, summary, a date. Now I know that this is not the prettiest preview, but we're gonna fix it right away. First of all, I wanna add a second page, and this one is gonna be to show the content of each blog post. And once we have that, we can style everything, and then it's gonna be perfect. So let's go ahead and jump to our route. And for this, we're gonna create a new route, and this is gonna be $id.tsx. And $id just means that we have a parameter, which is the blog post ID, and we're gonna use this to grab the correct or show the correct blog post to the user. So now if we navigate to / basically anything, you're gonna see this is hello $id, and this is basically coming from this page. So now what we can do is to load the correct blog post from the new blog post page. And for that, we're gonna use the loader again. And here we wanna get access to this parameter that we are passing inside the URL. Right now it's this gibberish. And this is gonna come from params. So params. So let's go ahead and search for the blog post with the given ID. So for that, we're just gonna get all the blog posts and use this find function to search for the entry that has the same ID as the one that is passed in the parameters. We're also gonna need to add a check in case that the blog post does not exist. And in this case, we're gonna throw a not found error. Not found is a utility function that comes from TanStack React Router, by the way. And now we can just return the blog post. We still have one error here, and that is this ID field. We still didn't actually really define where this is supposed to come from. And there are actually multiple ways we can do this. We can decide, for example, that we want to use the file name of each entry as the ID, or you can also have your own ID field inside each of these IDs, which is going to give you like more flexibility. For example, you may want to have a very simple ID and have a different file name, for example, by adding the date that you created that entry. That way you can keep track of all the entries. This is actually the way I would do it in production, but in order to keep this simple, jump back to the configuration, and inside this transform block, we can define our own ID by grabbing document.meta.path, and this is the file name. So now we're getting a not found error, which is expected because here, as you can see, we're passing gibberish, but now we can add navigation between the two pages, and that's actually very easy. So for that, let's just go back to our main page, and I'm gonna replace this p element with a link, of course coming from TanStack Router. And the target of this link is gonna be the page /$id, and we're getting an error here because we need to pass in the ID as well. So I'm gonna pass in params, And here the expected ID comes from post.id. And this is what I was talking about. It's really cool that you have type safety literally at every level, starting from the Markdown document till your code. It's just great. Everything is type safe. It doesn't matter if it's inside the loader or inside the application. You just have this confidence that you are not missing an argument here and there, having some weird bugs. So let's click on one of these entries. And now you can see that we're not getting that error anymore, but we are getting another text because we're still not showing the loaded data yet. So if you go back to the other page, we can also grab the loaded data here again. So const post is going to be route.useLoaderData. And now I'm just going to show the content, basically raw. So post.content. And if I save, you're going to see this is the Markdown document, and it's not formatted. You're gonna see here we have this H2 element that is shown as a text, but this is great, which means that we have all the data. We should just render it in a beautiful way. So now that we have all the data available to us inside the application, it's time to first of all transform this Markdown data into real HTML. Second of all, also style it so that it looks, well, beautiful. And third of all, I want to show you how you can have different types of document, like I showed you in the demo, having like a blog post or a video, and you can render that differently. So how to set up content collections for that, but also how to handle that inside your application. Let's dive back. So for rendering Markdown, we're going to be using the very famous library React Markdown, which is, I think at this time, it's pretty much a standard. And for that, I'm going to install basically all of these libraries. One of them is React Markdown, but we also have some plugins that we can use with the library. Once that's installed, we can have our own Markdown component. And I already created a wrapper component, Markdown, that receives the content in Markdown as a string and also an optional class name. And internally, this uses this library React Markdown. And as you can see, all these plugins that we have installed are also passed in here. I'm not going to go too much into details, but this just gives you more possibilities inside your Markdown. The cool thing about this library is that it also gives you the possibility to define how you want to render each component. That is optional, but you have the possibility, for example, to pass in your own custom image component. And here we're just styling it with rounded and giving it shadow. And once that we have this component, we can jump back to our ID page. And here, instead of showing it as a simple string, we can use the new component. So Markdown and content equals post.content. And now, as you can see, the page is rendered as HTML. It's not that obvious, but if you pay closer attention, you're going to see that this is actually HTML and not Markdown. And right now we just need to add custom styles to the headers and other stuff so that it looks more like a normal page. And the easiest way to do that is to use the TypeScript/typography package. So I'm going to install that by running npm install tailwind/typography. And after that's done, we should also jump into our main CSS file and import this package over here. So now that we have set it up, we can come back to our ID route, and I'm gonna pass in a class name here. And now we have access to a specific class, which is prose. So if I do it, you can see that we have some styling. And in order to make it dark mode, we can also pass in prose invert. And now this is styled normally. We can actually also add in some padding to make it look a little bit better. I like how this looks. Now, of course, here we're also missing the title, so we can also have our own h1 element inside of here. So h1, and here we can have our post.title. And because this is inside of this element that is styled with prose, we don't need to have our own custom styles here. If you have your own h1 element, then you can just use it here as well. So let's go ahead and define different content types, and in this case it's going to be video or blog post. So jumping back to the content collection, here we have the schema that defines the type of the content or the entry inside the Markdown files, and here we can define our own schema. So let me just extract this part over here, schema, and then we can pass it over here. So we can have two types of schemas, and this is actually the one that we have until now, which is, I'm gonna call this article schema. And we're gonna have a video schema or a YouTube video schema. So video schema. And in order to differentiate between article schema or video schema, we're going to be using discriminated unions. Discriminated unions are a really cool feature, actually one of the best features in TypeScript, but also in Zod, and we're going to use it for this. So for that, we're going to need to have a type field. This field can actually be called anything you want, and this just needs to be a literal. So this is going to be article. And inside the video, we're going to have the same thing. And the type here is not going to be article, it's going to be video. And now the schema can be defined as the discriminated union of the article schema and the video schema. Now, of course, nothing has changed yet, but what we can do is to have different fields inside each one of these. So inside video, for example, I want to keep the type and the title. We don't need to have any summary or author, but we actually want to have a YouTube video ID, which is what we're going to use to show that embedded video when the user clicks on a video. And now let's open the logs, and there seems to be some kind of error. Yep. As you can see, we have actually quite a few errors, and it's always type invalid input because we did not provide the type inside our Markdown documents. And now we can just jump in and add type, and this is article. So let me just copy this and add it to basically all of the entries here. And once that's done, you're gonna see we don't have any errors anymore, and the web page is still working just like before. So now we can actually create a video, and this is a new entry tutorial.md, and inside of it is basically an entry for why everyone is moving to TanStack Start. This is my latest video. This is the release date. Actually, this is the wrong date, but the YouTube video ID, I just got it from the ID of the video from YouTube's URL. And now if you come back over here, you're gonna see we also have this entry why everyone is moving to TanStack Start. It's actually not showing anything yet because we are not handling this inside the code. And if we go back to $ID, you're gonna see that it's just showing the markdown content. And here we can easily just add a check. So if post.type is equal video, then we can show this embedded video tag. So this is just an iframe showing youtube.com/embed, and then we're passing in our YouTube video ID. I just followed the instructions from YouTube when you want to share a video on your website. So just like this, we have this video that is loaded basically from the Markdown documents. And that's how you create a type-safe, content-driven application or web app using TanStack Start. I'm actually really happy to see the ecosystem around TanStack Start as a library growing as well. If you're interested in the TanStack ecosystem, check out my newsletter, TanStack Weekly, where I send an issue every week with all the news, everything that happened inside the TanStack world. And I'm also launching my own TanStack Start course. If you're interested in really mastering this extremely powerful framework, then check it out at learntanstack.com. And by the way, I actually made a video where I was talking about context in TanStack, router, and start, and I made a mistake there. So in order to fix that, I actually released another video where I clear up what I was confused about and how to make sense of loaders and context in TanStack Start. Thanks again for watching, and see you over there. Ciao.